Welcome to the Mechanical Room. A Centrotherm production focusing on all things in and around the HVAC industry. And now, your hosts, Michael Sokaris and Matthew Pryce.
Children of all ages, welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Mechanical Room. Matthew, what is on our agenda for today?
Well, forget about today. We'll get to today in a little bit. But for the year, we've got, I'd like to reflect a little bit on, we did the podcast every month last year.
Which was our goal.
12 episodes, one per month, which was exactly what we set out to do, and we did it. We're starting 2022 strong with one of a fascinating guest. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Ryan Kiskadin of Watts Water. I can't wait to ask him about how the company works and all kinds of stuff. He's involved in charitable stuff. He's a phenomenal drummer. I mean,
and he's a entrepreneur when it comes to marketing and all marketing stuff and enablement, which I got to ask him about.
And an author. I mean, he's just don't miss the interview portion. It's going to be fascinating. A really, really great guest for episode 1 of season 2. And I mean, it's just great to be back into the Hot Air Studios. We took this podcast from, my house and your house during the pandemic times to
in our offices here.
That's right.
And then to the Hot Air Studios.
That's it. New heights and new guests, new installations. Same jokes. I mean, we're just gonna recycle them. It's great. It is great to be back, and I'm excited to do this. We've heard a lot from folks in the industry and beyond that. They really like what we're doing. It's sort of forward-facing and progressive for the industry. We, as we always say, we pride ourselves on talking about the mechanical room and the mechanical room adjacent, really just putting a lens over all HVAC, plumbing. Sometimes we get into electrical, sometimes we get into industrial stuff and wastewater and stuff.
And this year we're going to go deeper and farther than we did in year 1. Absolutely.
There's going to be, a variety of guests. I mean, Michael's working for next month on a really fascinating one. And, hopefully we get that.
We'll land it.
If not, we'll have somebody who's less good. But, it'll be.
But we'll pretend it was them so they feel good about it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, Mechanical Room, Season 2. Why don't we just head right over to Show Us Your Pipe. Welcome back to the Mechanical Room, and this is the first ever January edition of Show Us Your Pipe. When we kicked off the podcast last year, we introduced the segment, but we didn't give any prizes away for great installations. Not this year. We're going right into it, and the winner this month is Somatic MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, out of the great province of British Columbia. Thank you so much to JSA Sales for posting these photos. This is really fascinating looking installation.
Indeed. So the reason I really dig this one is just the way that it's all flat up against the wall and just the different angles. I mean, it's almost, artistic in its construction. And one of the things that we always look at and we encourage is making sure that the installation is done properly and properly supported. And even the supports in this job are done in such a manner where they are artistic and even and squared off. It's very nicely done. I'm sure you will put the pictures there. A nice Navian job, if I'm not mistaken, in this application. So shout out to the Navian team on this one.
Yes, shout out to Takeo and Califacio, and this thing is really, really, if you look at the bottom of this photo that I'm showing right now, obviously a complex 4-unit installation. Everything is nice and neat. I mean, you know, there's a disturbing lack of diamond plate, as I say, in every single one that has a disturbing lack of diamond plate. But you know, you can't diamond plate them all. This is a pretty tall room, it looks like, so the diamond plate probably would have been pretty penny for this whole thing,
Yes.
which is actually kind of why it's vented the way that it is. And I mean, it's fascinating to look at this one. It's sort of an atypical
Yes, very different.
orientation. I'm curious. I would be curious to see why maybe they didn't common vent this stuff. Maybe it's a local codes thing. That's totally possible. Another possible reason is this is maybe an apartment complex where everybody's got a different bill.
Could be.
So I mean, there's a million reasons why you do the things that you do. And
The thing that is fascinating though is that the height of that room is,
yeah, it's,
you know,
really, it's
it would
super
not
tall.
strike me as an apartment complex. So we don't know specifically what it is, but it's a big space, maybe industrial or hospital, who knows?
It is recently completed Handsworth Secondary Project in North Vancouver. Well,
Secondary school, possibly.
I'm not sure what that means exactly. Maybe a secondary school. Do they say that anymore? Is that a term that gets used these days?
Canada, maybe.
Possibly. I don't know. We'll have to touch base with our dear friends at JSA Sales
Thank you for sharing it.
on a couple of details here. But I mean, you know, as we cycle through these photos here, just a professional job overall. Everything is nice and clean. You know that this was clearly taken the day it was completed, right? No dust, no muck, no nothing. This is when we love our show us our pipe photos, because everything is in its right place. Everything is completely neat and clean, and that's the way mechanical rooms always stay forever, right?
The one thing that I also loved about this, even the gas type pipe, the way that it's coming in, it's done exactly the same to the left of the appliance with the same loop, the same direction. Yeah. It was just meticulously done. I always like to say, by a craftsman.
Yeah, methodical.
Yes.
I mean, that's what this is. Shout out again to Somatic MEP out of Vancouver and our friends at JSA Sales for posting this. You guys got a swag pack coming your way. We still have some holdovers from the Centrotherm 2021 fall line
collection.
Yeah, the fall collection.
Dior is taking some of that, so we better get it to him soon before it goes.
We'll be coming out soon. I'm currently working on the spring collection for Centrotherm. Maybe a tank top. I don't know. We'll see. You know, we're gonna show the guns off in the industry this year. But they're popular out there in the industry.
They are.
Well, anyways, maybe vote on this. Comment here on YouTube or on Anchor and wherever you're listening on these podcasts here. Tank top, yay or nay? He says nay. My wife says nay. To her chagrin, I say yay. But that's just how it is. Anyways, show us the gun. Oh, the gun. No, it's the pipe. Show us your pipe. Thank you guys again, JSA Sales and Somatic MEP. Great job. We'll be right back with Ryan Kiskadin. And we are back for the interview portion of the Mechanical Room, episode 1 of season 2. We have a very special guest today, Ryan Kiskadin, an expert in integrated marketing, a published author, which we're going to get to in a little bit on the subject. He works for Watts Water Technologies as its manager of sales enablement. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degrees in business administration and an MBA from Elizabethtown College, which is in Southeast Pennsylvania, which I had to look up and see. We're going to talk a little bit about Lancaster County. I have some Pennsylvania bona fides myself, and I'd be curious to hear about some experiences with there. I don't think the Amish use a lot of commercial boilers, but that's a different story altogether. Anyways, you live outside of Philadelphia with his wife and 2 sons, 5 and under, and you recently wrote a book, Stay the Course, chronicling my self-development, business, and vocational improvement, now in 2nd edition. That is available on all of your Amazon and whatnot and stuff. So before we even get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about Watts too, because the biography or the about section of the Watts page made me die laughing with the first sentence. And so before we get into the questions and all that other stuff in your book and all that, there's a ton of stuff we could talk about. I want to just talk a little bit about Watts, because this is one of our first OEM guests, not our first, but among our first OEM guests. And Watts is a fascinating company. Joseph Watts founded the company in 1874 on the strong belief that water boilers in textile mills should not explode.
Yeah.
And I think we can all agree on that one. What started with a pressure relief valve in a tiny New England machine shop has paved the way for today's high-quality, worldwide water solution technologies. From melting ice on entire city blocks from the ground up to filtering safe drinking water in isolated weather disaster zones, you need water, and water needs Watts. Watts makes valves, pneumatic and electric actuators. I don't even know what that is. Drainage systems, boilers, backflow prevention systems, gas connectors, radiant floor heating, and so much more. Really fascinated to hear about Watts, the company, and all the things that you do for them. And you yourself, Ryan, please say hello to my co-host, Michael Sokaris.
Hello, Ryan.
Hello, Michael. How are you? Good to see you again.
Nice to see you as well, sir. I got to ask, my first question, reading your bio, sales enablement. What indeed is sales enablement? Help me understand that. What do you do?
Yeah, so sales enablement is a really cool, sexy term, I'll call it, for marketing nowadays. But in a nutshell, really, we're just trying to connect all the great stuff that the Marcom team does here at Watts to the sales team. And whether that's our manufacturer reps to our regional sales managers, sales enablement has a pretty broad definition, but it can include everything like doing trainings, education, awareness, but again, in a really short form, it's trying to connect the sales team to what marketing does every day and making sure the two of those things are synonymous together, because typically those aren't. They operate in silos, and this is a great position to be able to sort of knock down those barriers. But sales enablement is a burgeoning field, I think, not just in our industry, but a lot of other verticals as well.
Cool. So Matthew's going to be hitting me up for like a new title now, I think, given that he's our marketing and communications manager, he's going to be looking for a sales enablement
I want to be a sticker enablement job, as we're going to talk about a little bit later on. We're big on stickers these days here, as the industry is as well. Sticker enablement for your laptops and your trucks and all that sort of stuff too. That's cool. Is that I mean, obviously you've just changed companies, that is. Were you doing a similar thing at your previous company, and this is the first time you've been called a sales enabler, correct?
Yeah, I think the big thing is looking at my career trajectory. I think along the way, I've always had either business development, marketing background, or in this case, there's this sales enablement piece. In a lot of ways, the job that I'm doing today is not much different than the job that I've done in the past. It's just a little more focused on the sales team. And I really think that it takes special people to be able to connect and sell and talk about the things that marketing can do compared to what sales is doing. And so translating those bits of information into something that's palatable for both sides it's a key position for sure.
So tell us a little bit about the transition. I don't know if you want to mention the previous company, but it is a notable name in the industry. Yep. So you're new at Watts, of course. Tell us a little bit about the transition, and maybe what's been the biggest learning curve joining up with the Watts Water organization.
Yeah, I mean, the comment I would make about the transition is we all kind of go through them in our career, and sometimes those decisions are really hard to make. And that was definitely the case with my transition. It's a great company that I left, a well-known name, to an equally, if not better, well-known name as well in our industry and space. So, at the end of the day, when I started in my career at the HVAC and plumbing wholesaler, I always said to myself, I got to find the industry that I want to be in. Where I work and what job I do is less important to me. And I think that's really carried me through where I am today, is I just found the industry. I'm sure we're going to talk about that, but working through and working with blue collar types, understanding the plight of the contractors in the field, whether they're mechanicals, the one shop or the one van owners and folks like that. I mean, that's just kind of where my heart is. And then we'll talk a little bit about, I think we'll get into Lancaster County and blue collar background and things like that. But generally, yeah, I mean, the transition it's just part of the nature of the beast, I think, with anyone in any industry. But it was a very good opportunity for me, and I'm so happy to be where I am now. As far as Watts goes, they have a lot of great initiatives internally. For anyone that works closely with the Watts organization, whether it's a rep to internally with our employees or even customers, you know that Watts is well known not just for brand reputation and quality, but for training, and really now known for how do we do that hands-on training, but in an e-learning format. And Watts is a leader with that, and that philosophy sort of permeates the organization. I mean, we practice what we preach, and folks within our staff, whether that's again our marketing team, product team, or others, really put a lot of emphasis around professional development, personal growth, and yeah, Watts is well known for that in our space, and couldn't be at a better place. So yeah, you know, but as far as challenges go, I can't really think of any quite yet, but I'm still a little new, but you know, it's still a great company to work for.
Indeed it is. So a question, you said a lot there. I wrote down several questions from your answer. This one is, you know, you were talking about the small guy, you know, single truck. We kind of call them affectionately the trunk slammers, you know, single man show. And then you're talking about larger contractors. We also talk about personas. Do you look at that in a way? Are you marketing or positioning or enabling your sales team differently around those different types of guys? Do you treat them all the same? Just curious on how a big company looks at it and how you take that, you know, that approach and get it into the hands of the sales team.
Yeah, I think that generally speaking, we absolutely stratify all of our customers, and we do focus on those personas. We use some tools called Story Brand, so where we're writing out experiences that we expect that customer to have, and then what their pain points are, and trying to tell their story in a way that we can solve their problem with a hero, essentially, and hero being one of our products. But you know, generally speaking, yeah, I mean, look, when you think about marketing, you have sort of that generalist marketing, which is more going to be on the branding side. It's going to be on just awareness of, okay, Watts the company, or what Watts represents. Then you have down to that stratification level of focusing on the individual customer. I mean, at a company the size of Watts, you know, we have folks dedicated to certain customer segments. For example, we have a whole sales support system focused just on specifying engineers, or we're going to have support system focused just on mechanical contractors, just focused on e-commerce initiatives, you know, and things like that, or retail. So, and there's all these different areas that kind of, and staff and resources that fill those buckets and needs. So, you know, the stratification is important, and there are themes. I mean, when you think about how Watts goes to market, you know, we talk a lot about connectivity, we talk about water quality and sustainability. Those are the three large overarching, more generalist type themes. But then how do those things feed into that individual persona? You know, what does a specifying engineer care about of those three themes? You know, water quality is probably one. And so we try to market our products according to that. So yeah, generally, we do both, but typically we'll focus probably more on the persona side, or having a stratification, as we call it.
Cool. And we take that approach as well. We believe in, you know, identifying, as you said, the pain points and having a different message and a, you know, a different story to tell to the different pieces of the market, which leads me to one of my favorite subjects. And I'll say that even with Matthew here, is marketing strategy. What we philosophically talk about this all the time. How would you define marketing strategy?
It is broad and very confusing at times, because there are so many things that you can do. Like a lot of things, when you think strategy, you think plan. So I think when I think strategy, it always starts with a written plan of some kind. And you know, with our industry particularly, you're seeing a push towards digital, and so you're seeing a push towards meet the customer maybe in a more digital environment. But as you guys know, the facts are the average age of a worker in our industry is 55 and up. And so you kind of have to look at, yeah, we got to use some of those old techniques and strategy, and then combine it with the possibility of digital, or other kinds of mechanisms that are out there. And so it's always sort of this push and pull between, you know, which one leads. But generally speaking, the strategy is such a broad term. It could be, what's your communication strategy? You know, what's your direct marketing strategy? What's your digital strategy? All those things kind of make together this gumbo, I'll call it, or burgoo, as I kind of recently learned with a trip to Kentucky. That's their version of gumbo, as I've come to learn. But yeah, I mean, they all kind of come together and you know, form that strategy piece. At the end of the day, you got to look at yourself. You got to look at what's your budget going to be off of your plan. What's the resources that you can dedicate to it? And essentially, where will you be most effective? Because if you do a little bit of everything, but not very effective, versus doing one or two things very well in marketing, I think you're going to have a better result. So yeah, it kind of includes all those elements, I would say.
I am fully going to blindly steal that gumbo metaphor because it's beautiful. I really like that.
Pride here. We like that.
I like that characterization. And that actually brings me to another question about how, similarly, you asked about market strategy. I'm curious about Watts as I mentioned, I named 100 things, several of which I don't even know what they do exactly, what of the Watts brands that is, right? So I guess my question is, how does Watts keep all the different segments together and organized? How do they work with one another? How defined are the swim lanes? I mean, I guess I'm looking for sort of a corporate overview, just because it's kind of fascinating. We do one thing here at Centrotherm. We make vent pipe, right? Like we're a subsection of what would be one brand under a Watts umbrella. How much interplay is there between Airco and
Yeah,
great question. Yeah, so I think first of all, since we're a publicly traded company, there are so many different either controls or systems or general managers, I'll call it. And so when you think about the way that the organization is structured, we have 14 brands. Now, those 14 brands, so I guess to keep the analogy consistent, one could be vent pipe, and then we might have controls, and we might have appliances, and we might have other systems like flow control or plumbing related. And so yeah, generally the way that Watts is structured is, depending on your function, you may support all 14 of those brands depending on what you do, or you may only support a subset of those brands. And so there's some folks that are literally just campaign managers on our Marcom team that are just specifically related to TechMar, as you mentioned, or you have someone like on my staff that's a sales enablement person that represents almost all of those brands in some capacity in the sales force, because the way that the rep community is set up with our certain brands. So the devil's in the details, so when there's acquisitions made and you look at, what are the synergies between the product categories? So if you've now acquired, a company that maybe makes, I don't know, like pipe, and one is PEX and one is copper, they're kind of similarly related, but do they go to the market with the same reps? That might determine who supports them internally from our team. And so, another woman on my staff, all she does is social media. And so she has access to pretty much everyone's content if we decide that, let's say Airco needs something versus, our Mueller Steamline fittings need something. And so it really depends. It's more of a shared resources mentality with how we support the others. But some of it is, again, that some of those acquisitions may have came with support, and they are still doing the job at a very high level, and they will continue to do that job. And in fact, they may be integrated into work on other areas of the business just by the sheer fact that they know a little bit about a similar area. So I know it's a very broad answer, but to kind of give you a little bit inside baseball about Watts is, we work through things like agile methodology, agile marketing, and because there is so much, there is sprints, and so there's constant transparency between the work that we're doing to who could assist with that work. Look, 2% of my time helping with something may be just what they need versus 100% of my time. And so getting in that subject matter expert or the person that can assist on a project or a campaign or whatever that initiative is, we kind of work that way in sort of a more decentralized approach. But I mean, generally, we do have some lanes defined, but I think those lanes, they blur for sure at a larger company.
Is there any rivalry between the brands? I'm not even talking about like year-end, bottom line type stuff. I'm talking about like a grudge match because there's a PBI softball team and they have beaten Airco softball team for the last 8 years running. So there's bad blood between the water heater and the boiler lines because of this or that, that kind of thing. I mean, we were kicking around the idea of like starting a softball team with Centrotherm too, where we'd all, we'd obviously be the Centrotherm team. Curious about, I mean, again, the interplay between that, because I mean, I've certainly emailed with folks who have an airco.com extension.
Absolutely.
And you have a Watts extension, and there's a PVI extension. So there is an interesting division there. So it's just fascinating to me, as we are a much smaller company, to get a glimpse of the larger organization.
Yeah, I think intercompany wise, I mean, we're always trying to beat each other at those softball type games. Like, just from what I've gathered from the internal intranet, right? Like the certain teams, whether it's our Kaizen submissions to just anything. There's always that competitive spirit, I think, which is great for intercompany relationships. But just speaking with our sales team throughout the areas and things like that, I would think there's more of some issues that arise just from intercountry stuff, whether it's Canada to US or Mexico to US. But quite frankly, I haven't seen much of it yet, and that's probably great. It may be that it's not out there, but generally, I think we just kind of work through those issues, and we all have the same interest in mind, which is to serve that customer or the contractor, wholesale distributor, or whoever that is. And yeah, I mean, it comes with any organization, though, right? Like you get some of those tugs and pulls and things that come around periodically.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not unlike accounting over here and engineering over here and marketing is here and sales is here and I mean, it's different spokes on the wheel, if you will. And I mean, some of those brands are large enough to have their own wheels and spokes of themselves. So
speaking of brands and speaking of you, which brands do you play with? Is it all of them? Or are you focused on a certain number of them?
Yeah, so my role today, as written, is to really support all of our brands minus the HHWS side, which is our hot water solution side, because of the way that they're set up currently. I would love to get more into that side of our business, but they could really, I think, in the future get some assistance with the sales enablement function and trying to connect all the great pieces that they have, and then connecting that directly to manufacturer reps and sort of creating a feedback loop. But that's decisions to be made in the future. But I got to go back to real quick your question, Matt. So it made me think about when I was at the wholesale distributor, we always had, and it's not just wholesale distributor, it could be you name the company. There's always that like accounting versus purchasing and sales versus purchasing, things like that. I'll never forget my first couple years in our business. And I remember this sort of tug of war that happened between our sales team and our purchasing team. And so on the sales side, it was like, they all always fight with, well, how come we can't, everything we try to sell is out of stock. So they would call like the purchasing department, like the sales prevention department, because they can never bring the stuff in the stock on time. And the purchasing department will call the sales team, like, basically they're the bottom line, losers, because they're giving away all of our stuff for not charging enough margin. So it's like, you always have sort of this tug and pull between the two of those positions. And some of it's personality driven than it is structural. Like it could just be that one person or two people in an organization that you have to work out and kind of fix those issues. But they're real. I mean, certainly the bigger you get, the more integrated it becomes, the more of those things you see, for sure.
Yeah, I won't go into specifics, but the term sales prevention gets kicked around a little bit internally here as well. Yep. I won't say who says it about who. He knows.
And they know who they are too.
I don't think they know that they're that though, and that's as far as we will go, because I'm going to remain friends with those fine folks.
Yes, indeed. It's all about the team, right? There's no I in team.
At the end of the day, we all win or lose together. I mean, basically. So while there is sort of fun, let's call it camaraderie, even though it's that's a bit of a pejorative, clearly. It is. We are win or lose as a team, as you guys do as well. You were talking about the wholesale side. We went pretty deep on the resume here, as I did some research on you. I googled around. I found some stuff on an old Twitter too that we're going to ask about.
It doesn't go away, Ryan.
Oh my God.
Digital is forever.
So you worked with our dear friends at APR Supply.
Yes.
Was Jeff in the mix at that point? I'm not sure how long he's been there. He's our
Jeff
point
Thompson.
man.
He's
Jeff Thompson. Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's a couple of Jeffs I've known there, but Jeff Thompson, absolutely.
Yeah, he's a good friend to ours.
Shout out to Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah. If you're watching this, we last time I saw him was in Palm Springs. We left the Hardy annual conference, which is something I think you work with as well. I don't really have a question about APR Supply. I just wanted to say what's up to Jeff and acknowledge their partnership with Centrotherm.
But I would, Matt, I'll stop you there, because I've often talked about this, either it's been in interviews or just with people. That experience that I got at APR has served me so well in my career. I didn't know that going in. I was there for 6 years. And I mean, I was in their management training program. I was able to, literally drive trucks. I worked in the warehouse. I worked at the counter for a year. I worked in the purchasing department. Like, I did so much stuff there just to get to know contractors in our business that it continues to serve me well, whether it's like the way that certain, you know, pieces connect together, you know, how the interactivity between certain brands, how the two-step distribution works. You know, it's so valuable. I'm constantly using those experiences. And, you know, if we're talking about dear friends, Terry Ludwig at APR is by far, at least in this business for me, the highest mentor that I could ask for, both in business and life. You know, he's the guy that I'm texting and I get stuck on something and we work it out over a whiskey drink. That's my preferred. And we just talk about these issues and think about how do you work through those things, you know, both delicately, both, you know, for you as a person, but, you know, for your family as well. And so there's that interconnectivity between, you know, what we do every day to our life. And but he's been that for me, and I love the folks at APR. And in fact, I don't know if you can see in my overhead, maybe I think I cut it off, but I just got a mini split through them a couple weeks ago and had one of their contractors put it in. So it's great stuff.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're like a true success story of the management trainers program. Is that where you were going to go? Because,
no, but that's a good point.
I forget, what was the actual title of the program that they call it?
It was just management trainee program.
Management training. When we were at Hardy, Jeff was walking around with two little U's, 19-year-old Ryans, you know, contemporary 19-year-olds doing that exact same sort of stuff. And man, they were super stoked and excited about the industry. And they said almost the same thing that you're saying. You're looking back at it, you know, 15, 20 years, whatever. They are in it, getting that experience. And they were incredibly excited to be at Hardy and walk around and meet other, you know, manufacturers and make contacts and network and stuff. But they made sure to talk about how, you know, to tell me that they also worked in the warehouse and they were picking orders and they were doing this and that. And, you know, and it really does round you out and make you appreciate all of those spokes on the wheel that we were, you know, previously referred to. So really good on APR for having this program. And I mean, clearly it has got decades of bona fide success here. You, of course, being a shining example of that. So
it's easier to be successful in the jobs that the three of us have if you understand what a distributor does and why they do it, and kind of they're the artery of getting, you know, product into the market and coming up through distribution. I came up through distribution, not on this side, on the electrical side, but it's critically important. And one of the things that we do here, and Matthew actually hosted it, if I can call it that. We took a bunch of our new folks and he toured them around the local distributors in the Albany area. We went to FW Webb. We went to Sid Harvey. I forget where else we went.
To a Johnstone Supply. We like literally did a circle of the Capital District of New York, and we went to, and not all of them are customers either. And there was some, you know, airside suppliers that were, you know, that we don't sell vent pipe to. It was like, let's just go walk in and.
Yeah, well, you know, they went to the counter. You know, why do you have stuff on display? You know, how do you make that decision? All those things are critically important. And part of what we say we like to do with this podcast is try to, you know, part of it is entertainment. Part of it, of course, right, you know, we're marketing stuff. And
handsome hosts.
Handsome hosts. We also giving back to the HVAC, you know, community. And we want this to be a forum for getting the word out on what we do. And us as a manufacturer, you as a manufacturer, we've had contractors, we had, you know, associations, we had Talbot from Hardy on. It's about bringing awareness to the industry because, as you said, the average age is kind of my age, if not a little bit above that. And there's a big gap, right? And we need to get the younger generation, and being at a distributor, knowing what a distributor does is important. So that's part of our mission here.
Totally is. And so, I mean, we've smooched the metaphorical backside of Hardy enough on this podcast that we can just say, yeah, we love you guys at Hardy. And he works with Hardy a little bit too.
Yes.
But I wanted to ask you about your other volunteer work as well. And you talked about giving back, so it's a perfect transition.
Sure.
Ryan works with the NMSS, which is the National Multiple Sclerosis Society.
Yeah.
How do you get involved with that? What do you do with?
So interesting tie in, Matt, because you and I talked a little bit over the email, like the band and music stuff. So very interesting story. So I was in a band for a long time in college, and I still play music at home as drummer. Yeah, you can see the djembe behind me. But the big thing was so there was, you know, with that particular band, one of the members, like, the band breaks up and all this, and they actually found a different drummer, and I had already moved on to a different project. But this drummer that was in the new version of the project or the band, ends up announcing that he has MS. And so we decided, as a group, like we were going to go out and try to support not only just him, but like this initiative. And so we actually did a fundraiser where we actually booked a show to do this, where the old version of the band, the one that I was in, played as in a competitive scenario to raise the most money for MS against the new version of the band. And we booked a night, and it's actually still available on YouTube, but the whole set for both sides of the act is available. It was so much fun. I think we raised maybe $5,000 or something for this. So that's really important to me, is that those kind of initiatives. But admittedly, I don't think we've done much with it since then, Matt. But that was a really cool moment, both for, I was proud of our band and the members to obviously get back together to do that, but then support someone. And that particular drummer, I've started to, believe it or not, this year, go back and relearn a lot of his parts, just because I know his MS has progressed and he's not able to play. And he was a very good double bass drummer, so he played a lot with his feet, with the 16th notes. And so I've gone back and tried to really recreate and learn those parts, not because I'm going to play with the band someday again with those, but because I think it'd be a nice way to pay homage to him. And I loved his playing and still do. So, and fortunately, he had to give up drums a couple years ago because of MS. But yeah, we have done some things there. But more on the volunteer side for me, I'll just make a couple comments. Since I started my career, I started getting affiliated with this group called SCORE.
I know SCORE.
SCORE is so cool for what they do for small businesses. So, U.S. Federal Agency of the Small Business Administration. They have local chapters, and really anyone that's starting a business can get free business help from a list of mentors within their area. I was actually signed up to be a mentor about 5 years ago now, at my own pace, right? So volunteer on the side when I get a couple minutes, and but I got turned on to it from dealing with contractors, right? A lot of these guys, as we all know, are good at turning the wrenches, good at the technical side, the business stuff is an area that they'd like to improve, and SCORE is great for that. You got a question on accounting to business management. And so some of the people that I've helped maybe like 1 or 2 contractors over the time I've been in the program, but a lot of people are like startups. They just have some random idea, and typically the advice is pretty simple. You start with, what's your business plan? And then the next meeting, they usually don't show up again. It's like, so they thought it was a great idea. Someone said it would be a good idea, but writing a business plan just scared them, and they just went nowhere else. And honestly, I think in some ways that's giving some people that tough advice they need to hear, is that if you're not willing to write a plan at the very minimum, you're probably not going to be very successful at this. And whether that plan's 2 lines on a napkin to its 200 pages, the point is you've written something down, you're executing on it. So, but anyways, I've always really enjoyed my SCORE work. I've talked a lot about that. And in my past, and I really enjoyed it, and I still do enjoy it when I get the time to do it.
Excellent.
That's very cool.
So the chat about SCORE brings me to a question. I want to bring it back to your book.
Yes.
So Ryan is, of course, a published author here. We plugged that at the top here. Available on Amazon and all major distributors and all that sort of stuff. Please go pick it up in second edition. This is, of course, me just taking this information off the internet, of course. But I did read, obviously look through the synopsis and all that sort of stuff. And I wanted to read something and then ask you a question that's relative to, the band stuff and the charity stuff and all that other stuff as well. So, quote, you don't need to be from the HVACR and plumbing industry to appreciate some of the idiosyncrasies of these learned business practices. I'd like to think many other industries operate in similar ways, and this book can be of service to startups, nonprofits, and for-profits.
Yeah.
So I guess reflexively, what's something you brought into HVACR from other industries, or something that's HVAC based that you think should, flourish elsewhere?
That is a great question. I think that when you do a lot, both like in your academic side and you're just trying to understand how do you pull those things in. I remember pretty clearly in my first job was talking about this thing called ABC, which is an accounting principle around allocation-based costing.
Oh, that might always be closing, as we're all sales guys over here, right?
Yeah, always be closing. I guess you could always do that too. But ABC for our industry, I think, is important, right? Like, if you're a contractor and you're getting a call that says, look, it's checking the furnace versus like doing a bunch of different elements within the furnace replacement, how do you allocate those costs? Maybe you're not sending your highest tech. Maybe you're sending someone that's a little bit younger, depending on what the nature of the job is. And so this allocation concept is really trying to get at a deeper analysis on, what is it that you're doing, and then are you properly putting them in the right bucket when you're doing your accounting? And again, I know like the guy that's literally in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt going, why am I talking about accounting on the job? But it could be as simple as, there you go. It could be as simple as, just marking up that invoice and saying, look, like this needs to go in a different bucket than normally we would just charge it to revenue, for example. Maybe we, break up this invoice a little bit deeper and say, look, that's a part that needs to go into, I don't know, the inventory, take that out of inventory, and you just mark it up and you give it to your accountant, So, but that concept, I think, is one that, is something that I've tried to get to, particularly on the marketing side, is around how do you allocate activities according to what those needs are. And it could be that, sometimes you just think like an employee is just good at that one task. Maybe they shouldn't be just doing that one task. Maybe they ought to be trying something a little bit outside their swim lane and trying, to grow themselves. And so, again, it's more of a broader methodology, I'll say, than it is something specific. But that would be one. I know I wrote about that in the book, but that's one that I think this industry definitely does and could think about further. And to be honest with you, I've seen a lot of the stuff that Ruth King has written. If you've ever talked and spoken to her, I love her books. In fact, a couple that are behind my shelf right now. Really great for contractors. I mean, great email that she puts out every day or every other day, whatever the frequency is. Just a quick, dollars and cents on what you need to be thinking about as a contractor. And I also listen to a podcast called the HVAC Jerks, which I believe the guys are up your way.
We've done that show.
We've been on
and we're very, we're close with those guys. Rich is a personal friend.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, so Rich and Anonymous Joe and everyone and Kevin, and but I love listening to their show, and they talk a lot about. I think in the most recent episode they talked a lot about you're going to make a lot of money in being a contractor. It's what you do with that money. It's how you save that money or how you reinvest that money. Making money in this business is not that hard, but it's really about how do you do it more efficiently and effectively over time. And that's something that again most people don't think about when they get started. And I don't think I shared this in the beginning, but I'll get into it now. My brother-in-law, he's a master plumber in New Jersey. He's a two-man shop, if you will. He has 2 trucks on the road, and that's a conversation that I've tried to get in a few times with them. It's like, how do you properly allocate your, this revenue that you're making to your bottom line, and obviously, separating the business from personal, especially at that size, because he's extremely profitable. He's busy with Jersey Shore homes and Princeton homes and higher end clientele in the greater New York metro. But, it's really about thinking through, like, because at some point, the back's going to give out, the knees aren't going to work as well, unlike me or others that aren't in the field that can actually probably sit at a desk and a computer till they're 65, So that's the kind of stuff that, our industry has to think about as well. Not only do you need people in it, it's about safety, ergonomics, just making sure you're not burning yourself out. I love that episode that the HVAC Jerk just did about it. So
those guys are sharp and real fun. I mean,
they make a subject that's not too sexy, right?
They do. They really do.
I'm going to connect 3 dots through our conversation here. One was you have a social media team. I'm going to forget the third one. 2 is your, you got family that are contractors. And the third is overall marketing strategy. How do you loop that together? Because we are doing some fun things with social media. Tell us a little bit about how those 3 things connect. You've got a dedicated person. What do they do? Where do you steer them? What's all this, social media craziness about that's going on in the industry right now? And there's a lot of it, right?
Absolutely.
Including the HVAC jerks.
And sometimes there's like weird pipe companies posting photos of lizards.
I don't know what the deal is with that. But
That's us.
Connect your earlier comment about personas and social media, and what are you trying to do as a company to tie that into maybe even a 4th thing, the younger generation that spends a lot of time on social media, even at work.
Like a lot of marketing, I think we try to treat it like a science experiment. And I mean that with all due, respect, is it's hypothesis first, test, analyzed later. And that idea, you could apply that to marketing campaigns. You can apply that to any kind of direct or communication that you do. But generally speaking, social media is the same way. We plan, so we have an editorial calendar. We post and we look at what type of posts. We actually have, I think it's about 10 different categories of posts. So you have people posts, you have product posts, you have fill in the blank posts, you have, we call it humanizing the brand type posts. You have data kind of posts, share posts, things like that. And so there's the organic strategy, and then there's a strategy around engagement, right? So we post something, someone comments, we're liking it, we either comment back. We look proactively at pages like our manufacturer reps, for example, and say, what are you guys doing related to tagging watts? And when you do, we're sharing that content, or we are going out and commenting. Something as simple as a little emoji of a fire, like that's fire what you're doing, to, just anything really, just thanks for the mention. All that kind of adds up into then the analyze part. And the analyze part is the metrics that you look at, whether that is, in our case, we look at both followers or connections, depending on the platform, and then also engagement. And so we'll call that metrics 1.0. The future, I think, is going to be metrics 2.0, which is this idea of trying to score all your data in social media, right? So like, hey, getting an extra follower may not have the same weight as getting a share from somebody. And so in the future, there's almost the idea of indexing, where you're kind of looking at like a weighted average, and you're saying, okay, well, that activity is worth only this much weight versus everything else that's happening with social, and then you compare that against yourself over time. Mark Zuckerberg talks about this most recently with this whole scandal around the whistleblower and Facebook and some of the things that they're not doing with their social media platform, and how, quite frankly, the tech space is going to get regulated a lot harder, I think, here in the next 6 to 12 months. I think both willingly, but also a little bit unwillingly, quite frankly.
Well, willingly, publicly, unwillingly, like obviously.
That's right. And but with that, he talks a lot about how they were scoring these posts internally, and things that were really damaging, or say light your hair on fire type posts, like those were getting a higher rank, which meant they were getting shown higher up in feeds. So that scoring, forget that was the output of that method. The method is what I'm talking about. If you're scoring the content, you're scoring the activity, you're scoring the followers. That's what we want to get to, I think, with Watts in a 2.0 type setting. We're not there yet, but we'll get there. And as far as addressing the younger generation, I think that social media is a very interesting animal, because you're seeing a lot of generational usage depending on which channel is out there, right? It's a different demographic fundamentally that's using Instagram versus probably the most commonly pulled one is TikTok. Like there's that conversation happening. However, and we're no different than most manufacturers. We have all 5 channels. I'll say the mainstays right now: your Facebook, Twitters, YouTubes, Instagram, and missing one.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn. But those 5 are by far, where the bread and butter is. Now, we would argue Twitter, you could probably just turn that off in our space and you wouldn't be offending anyone, quite frankly. No one uses it seems like, and the engagement's very low. But regardless, you can move to the future when you think about new social media channels like a TikTok. We did some preliminary research that sort of suggests that there is content being developed by technicians in the field, perhaps younger generation, on job sites of things that they're doing. And again, TikTok sort of has this bad rap of it being all about, dance videos, but I think the future is short form videos. That's what TikTok is serving very well today, and their algorithms are very good for doing that. And in addition, I think there's other platforms that you really have to monitor the future on for our space. One is Reddit. I mean, everybody, if you haven't been on Reddit, there is a plumbing forum, there's an HVAC forum. I think that's a very popular method that that we will be taking a look at as well. And then adjusting to that is social only, or excuse me, listening only social media. So there's a couple new social media websites out there, such as Clubhouse, where it's literally just audio only. And I think that I personally, if I'm putting my money behind any of those racehorses, it's going to be the listening only or audio only type social medias, because these contractors, whether you're mechanical, the one shop guy or one truck guy, to the big specifying engineers, you're in a car, you have windshield time typically. that is extremely valuable if you're able to serve content that way. And that's why I think podcasts like what you guys are doing, the HVAC Jerks, is a little bit ahead of your time, and we'll get there. But I think the future is bright with social media and capturing that next generation. But we have to think about that stratification around who uses those platforms, how are they using it, and how do they want to be served within it. And then from there, there's lots of tactics you can deploy, whether it's posting strategies, paid strategies, and things like that.
Fascinating. I do have a follow-up though, or I tried to mention it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Metrics. Are you using any tools to capture metrics right now around social media?
We do, yeah. So we are heavy users of the Hootsuite platform, not only for the posting side, but the data analytical side. I think the future there, although my team doesn't know this yet, I think the future is we're going to try to move that to more of a visualization respect. So meaning you can take a platform like that, and instead of dumping out Excel and putting them into all these spreadsheets by yourself and plotting everything out, it can actually visualize this and then concatenate other different areas of different data sources and go, oh, these two things may actually be working in parallel to each other. But we do use Hootsuite exclusively, I would say. And then we do have a couple social media and online listening tools as well that we have deployed.
Yeah, we can go on for hours around this alone, but
yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, the one that was exceptionally thorough and informed answer, yeah. I must say, it like kind of affirms some of the things that I feel about the industry as well. It's nice to get someone, you know, satellite person, let's say, you know, not inside this office, inside this room here to state some of those things that I definitely strongly believe. I will even take it a step further and say TikTok is maybe even further ahead in our industry than you might think. A funny little anecdote is my marketing associate. She is 21. She's coming on full time when she graduates. She's currently finishing her communications degree at Siena College. She texted me like Saturday morning last week, whatever, and she was just laughing because I don't know, she's scrolling TikTok, you know, she wakes up having a cup of coffee, whatever, and she tells me that one of my favorite contractors is suggested material, the what is it, SYP or SS whatever, there's a thing called suggested for you, maybe SFY. Her suggested feed contained a contractor who is a personal friend of mine and a big social media person out of British Columbia, and his plumbing content is now going into her, like, you know, Joe Jonas dance video, you know, generic feed basically. So all of a sudden there's a guy like working some valves in addition to dancing to Drake or whatever.
I think I know who that is, but he's always pushing the limits. You know, we joke about Twitch, but you know, he's always pushing the limits on new platforms. So is that what it is?
It is. Okay. It is none other than Terrence Chan of The Impetus, who you might be aware of. He is, you know, one of the better, you know, one of the best content creators in the industry, in my opinion.
And a former guest of our show.
He was actually the first guest for the Centrotherm podcast. He was so willing to do so. You went on coffee talk with him as well.
Yep.
I mean, he's all over the place. That guy has the energy. He's the right guy for this because, I mean, one, he gets it. Two, he's like, he trains his guys to make his like, I guess number two, maybe. I'm not quite sure where he is on the depth chart, but this fella who works with him makes the most incredible reels on Instagram. Yeah, like, I mean, so Instagram isn't even one I think that you mentioned, but he's doing these like short form videos on Instagram with a soundtrack and putting transitions. It's very slick. You know, I mean, it's fascinating to, I mean, I'm relatively new to this industry still. Right, I've only been in HVAC for the duration of time that I've worked at Centrotherm, so I really have kind of a tunnel vision because I've only worked in this sector at this company. And watching the evolution of how things have been just since 2015, 2016 has been fascinating, and of course, light speed too. So I mean, it's amazing to watch it all happen, sort of unfold, and you know, not to do this too much, but also to help bring it along a little bit with this podcast, with bringing people like you on, with engaging with Terrence and Michael Flynn and Eric at Mechanical Hub, and you know, you name them.
List is extensive.
Yeah, it certainly is. So, hey, we've taken up a lot of your time. So, but I do want to kind of go away from the industry a little bit. One, I'm very curious as to the CDs that are in those frames behind you, as to what that is. And two, I wanted to ask, who's your favorite drummer? You know, who's your favorite drummer? So who's your, you know, what's your favorite band? Who influenced you? Why'd you pick up the drums? And what do you got framed back behind there?
Okay.
I don't care about the college degree. You know, we all got those.
You're like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, so those are actually recordings that I've been a part of, and so I have.
Hoping you would say.
Yeah, so and what's really cool, I'll talk about the music stuff. I'm 15 years old. I decided, look, I want to play the drums, and my dad's like, yeah, you're gonna get one for Christmas, and that's what we did, and got my first Tama Rockstar. I'm self-taught. Was very inspired by bands like Metallica, Lars Ulrich. Yeah, right. Again, I love that they're in our industry too. If you're watching what they're doing, like the trade scholarships and stuff. I don't know if you've seen some of this, where they're helping fund. Oh, I love it. But that's where I got my start. Was like playing really, hard, heavy, loud, and but I'm like most people. Whenever they get their first instrument, you join a band. Like 6 months in, I'm in a band, and terrible, like absolutely horrible, and have recordings, and we have the whole bit. And yeah, I started making this musical journey where it's like, I kind of really like this, and I became sort of a student of it, not just because I liked, actually the physical playing of it, but I love everything about these drums now. I mean, to how they're made, the materials they're made out of, the gear, time signatures, like natural sounds, like recording, you name it. And I just got so into it, and it's one of those lifelong passions, obviously, because you can never check it off and say, I'm now the perfect drummer I've always wanted to be, or a musician, or whatever. The same thing you could say for fishing or golfing or anything else. But those are actually recordings. I had a couple bands. One was a singer-songwriter trio, so I was part of a trio piece that was sort of modeled after, I'd say, like John Mayer, if you ever followed that particular musicianship, and that lead-driven, very good breathy vocals. And then the other band on my wall is a band that was more of a modern rock type band. Down-tuned guitars, but more, 90 to 110 beats per minute. Nothing too fast and heavy, but got to play a lot with those guys. If you know anything about me, I'm a data-driven guy. I keep records of everything. I've played over 200 shows in my career playing in bands. I've countless hours, but I think earned something like $20,000 on the side just playing in bands and music. I wish it were a full-time thing, obviously, but it just wasn't meant to be. I'm in this industry to love this industry, but that industry is basically you need to become a superstar and a rock star to make any money in it. But I've met so many great people in this industry too, like when we did our first record with the modern rock band, the drummer from the band Breaking Benjamin and the guitar and singer from the band the Badleys recorded our album. They're now lifelong friends. I can message them and talk to them. Just great people. Met a lot of just great folks throughout the space, and that's probably one of my coolest memories is recording drums in those bands. And then this last comment I would make is I would love to teach more people about drums. I just love that portion of it, whether it's beginner to all the other stuff that I really like about and so. But I have everything from custom drums to like multiple drum sets to just really cool stuff. So
super. So hey, I got an idea. Matthew and I were talking about going to see Maiden in Worcester, Mass.
Nice. Okay.
In Pennsylvania. If
Yeah.
you want to go, we'll change our venue. I think it's in May, June. I forget when it is. Maybe a little later. But we'll change. We'll go with you if you want to go.
Well, look, my office at Watts is up there in North Andover, so Worcester to North Andover is not far. So maybe we can work it out.
Well, we got to make those plans, after we sign off here. But yeah, we're looking forward to Maiden. I personally have never seen them, and I'm of course a fan. And he's seen them 100 times or something like that.
I've seen them too. So. They're fabulous. They are, for me, they're one of the top 5 all-time live rock bands. They're just so tight, so good. I don't know. It's probably been 10 years or so since I've seen them, but they're great live. Now, I didn't answer your other question though, Matt, which was who is my favorite drummer? So favorite drummer. So yes, I got started because of Lars, but my favorite drummer of all.
Hold on.
He's gonna make a guess here.
Go ahead. All right.
Go for it.
All right. My favorite drummer is Mike Portnoy.
Wow. All right.
Did you know?
Oh, I put that.
That's not who we wrote down. You went with a pretty obvious one, perhaps. Yes, especially given what you said. You could probably take a guess as to who he thought might be it. And if the bullseye was, it's a pretty big bullseye to hit on this one. Who do you think he wrote down?
Neil Peart? Yeah.
I did. He is my all-time fave.
Okay.
I thought you would come up with that. That's amazing. Of course, Dream Theater is legends. I mean,
Yes.
you can't.
All of them are legends.
I mean,
Everyone in the band is a legend.
Dream Theater does a cover of Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding, that is otherworldly. Elton John is one of my all-time favorite, artists, whatever. He actually just got COVID. He just canceled a bunch of shows just now. He was all like rah rah, they're back up again. He's playing. He played in New Orleans, and I got COVID, and they got to cancel a couple shows.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, Portnoy is. I mean, he sits.
High on the list.
With whomever,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, John Petrucci is the guy who everybody. I'm a guitar guy, basically,
Yeah.
more or less. And everybody, he's right there with all the rest. I mean, Dream Theater is just.
So I have a quick story about Portnoy. So my wife for my, I think it was for Father's Day, she bought me a cameo appearance with Mike. So if you know what these are, right? So they basically, you pay him whatever the fee is, and he'll give you a custom message video. It's on my Facebook feed like permanently. I think I'll have to go pin it if I haven't pinned it. But when she showed this to me in bed, she's like, "Look at this message I just got." She hits play, and Mike's like, "Hey Ryan," I'm like, I hear you're a drummer. I hear a pretty good drummer. I'm like, what the hell is this? But Mike Portnoy, I just finished reading their book. I forget what it's called, Under Shadows or Lifting Shadows, I believe it's called, which basically covered everything up to when he left the band. It's really fascinating. I just love it. Look, even after Mike, I still love Dream Theater. I like Mike Mangini too. It's hard not to like him from a player standpoint, but Portnoy is my favorite guy. I loved him and everything he's done. He's coming to Philly as well with a couple different bands that he has, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, that's my favorite guy for sure.
So you're plugged into this stuff. I'll let you go. But I want to know, have you ever heard of a guy named Marco Miniman?
Of course, yeah. Marco Miniman tried out for Mangini's spot. Here, funny story about Miniman. So Marco Miniman was in a band called the Aristocrats, and this band played. I think they're still together, maybe on and off or whatever. And I was living in Center City, Philadelphia, and I liked this band, this Aristocrats band. And there was a bar down there that was about 1 or 2 streets up from us. It was called the North Star Bar. There's this little hole in the wall, like you never would have heard of it. It probably could fit in 40 people, 50 people max, like whatever. And literally, we're down there, and the next day I'm watching on my Facebook, and it's like the Aristocrats just played the North Star Bar. I'm like, are you kidding me? I just missed seeing literally this legend of a drummer in Marco Miniman. The guy is unreal, out of this world. If you want to talk about a guy that loves what he does, watch any video by Marco Miniman. It literally plays those drums like it is the happiest thing he is doing every day. So
Seeing him live, I saw him play with a band called Necrophagist, which is a German technical death metal band that has titles of songs that you would have to just bleep them all out. I mean, it's ridiculous, the names of these. They're super offensive on purpose. It's absurd. Yeah. He replaced in that band, and this is real. He replaced the drum machine that they used to use.
Yeah,
which speaks to that guy's ability. I mean, he's just a legend. I mean, just on the other side of anything I could ever dream of achieving. Amazing stuff. Hey Ryan, thanks so much for doing this. This was amazing, great information about the industry, and I mean, you're just what great interview, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on, man.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me. Look, if there's anything I can ever do in the future, please don't hesitate. I'd be happy to give you more. I mean, love talking marketing. I obviously love the drum side, and I love our business. So contractors in the space, and really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you guys asking me. I'm very humbled by it. So thank you so much.
Our pleasure, sir.
Thanks so much, man. We will definitely be in touch, and we'll be right back with some more Mechanical Room.
We will. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We are back. Episode 1, Season 2 of the Mechanical Room, and man, I mean, that was
an interesting interview. I have to say.
I completely agree. Ryan may have been our best interview.
The most wide-ranging, absolutely, of anything.
Absolutely.
From music to children's books, on the post chat. It was amazing.
It speaks to him as a person, well-rounded, with a lot of experience.
Gives back to his community.
Yeah, and a friendly guy who was making these connections. I mean, he said he was a personal friend with the the Breaking Benjamin guy. I mean, all they did was work together a little bit, but you stay in touch. Yep. He's the kind of guy that now I feel like, after we've had that chat, like I'm going to stay in touch with him because I want to know him better.
There's a lot of things to chat about, right?
Yeah,
things to do together.
Or yeah, like go to Maiden concerts.
And the interesting thing was the way that came about was like a fluke face-to-face meeting at an AD conference.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I was like, oh, I thought you were somebody else. He's like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I heard of Centrotherm. Where are you? And we got talking about the podcast, and he's like, hey, whenever you need a guest, let's chat.
And it's really funny too to trace that because we opened the conversation as come on the show at his previous role. And I mean, it's funny. I'm not going to put up the emails back and forth between them two, but he was cautious with his words as he was transitioning and whatnot, as any professional would be.
Very professional.
And then once he got established again, go through the proper channels. Hey, we're going to go on. And of course, he is a super professional guy and represented Watts like as good as could be, whatever. So like no big deal.
He's got a fascinating role. I mean, Watts gets it the way that they're doing it.
Oh, definitely.
With sales enablement, hats off to them. They get it.
Yeah, cool title. I mean, that is fun.
I had to ask him about that. He's like, dude, what is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does speak to some of the conversations you and I have had like off the air about how titles are interesting and not as cut and dry as they used to be. Right. And certainly there's a more creative. So all right, let me ask you a question then. So rewind the clock to you're getting started at Schneider in what, like in the 90s, early 90s, something like that.
90s.
So someone in his role, that role doesn't even exist at that point.
There were marketing people there. There were marketing communications. He mentioned Marcom a couple times during that session. But in a sales enablement role, doing what he's doing, I mean, it was unheard of.
So it's not really he's sort of a hybrid. He's like a liaison between sales.
Here's a good way to put it. As the business and marketing as a technique is evolving, Watts is jumping on board and evolving with it. So, I mean, they're changing with the industry, right? There's a lot of analysis about marketing dollars and where they're spent and how it's shifting from old style, commercials and literature and a larger percentage of it is moving into social media
and stickers,
which we'll talk about in a little bit. But they get that marketing is changing. The demographic of who we're marketing to is way different, and where they get their information and how they get jazzed up about the industry is different than it was back when I was your age, right? So, and they're keeping up with that. So hats off to them.
Yeah. So certainly, basically, a role like that didn't even exist back then. Is what
Absolutely not. No, it was traditional hardcore marketing, right? Brand management. Coca-Cola. And how do you manage the brand?
Man, I'm so glad I work in 2022.
It's different. It's way different.
I'm a sticker maker these days, guys. If you want a sticker, get in touch. Comment on the Instagram or something like that. We'll mail you one out.
Yeah. Centrotherm stickers available.
Double-sided too for your window decals. You can put them on your baby's crib, anywhere you want to put them, anywhere you want to slap them.
On your door, on your window, emergency exit, anywhere you want it.
Yes, indeed. All right, so let's wrap it up on episode 1, season 2 of the Mechanical Room. We gave a great show us your pipe segment there with a fascinating 4-unit Navian. We had a great interview with Ryan and a few chuckles along the way. Indeed. We've got a lot of great stuff planned for the rest of the year. Stay tuned for all of the shenanigans from Miami, which is coming up soon. We're going to be filtering in footage of that whole thing.
Follow us on Instagram if you want to see some of the visual. It goes back to what we were saying, right? The new way of marketing. Follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and anywhere you get your social media, and stay tuned for some cool stuff.
Yeah, we'll see you next month.